Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video I'm going to share some information with you on cinnamon and cloves. Now the information I share with you is not meant to be medical advice. It is meant to educate and entertain you. This is based on my own research, my own experience, and is purely my own opinion. So when it comes to adding anything into your supplement routine, please make sure that you seek out the advice of a qualified healthcare practitioner. Now these two spices are amazing and they're known the whole world over. And there's actually a lot of similarities in these two spices in the environment that they need to grow in. They both love tropical rainforest environment. So unless you have a hot house with special growing environment where you can control how much humidity it gets, how much water it gets, this is something that really prefers to grow where it's warm, where it's humid, where there's rain almost every day. And these two plants typically come from places in Indonesia in the Spice Islands. So let's start with cinnamon. I've got some notes here because there are a lot of similarities, but there's some really cool history about these two. So here's some of the health benefits of cinnamon. Cinnamon has powerful antioxidant properties, anti-inflammatory properties. It's really good for blood sugar regulation. It's good for your heart health. It's got antimicrobial properties, which I love. It's good for cognitive function, and it's good for weight management. And I attribute that to the fact that it's really good for digestion, and it's really good for regulating your blood sugar. So a lot of these things go together. Now, there's so many things you can do with cinnamon because it is such a well-known spice. It's not something that you can just add to sweets and bakery foods, but many cultures use cinnamon in savory dishes, especially Middle Eastern dishes or Lebanese dishes. I have a really good friend who owns a raw food restaurant. Actually, it's now more of an organic, beautiful restaurant. And he has a lot of Lebanese influence because he's from Lebanon. And so the food there has a lot of some of these warming spices, which cinnamon is one of them. Now there's all kinds of things you can do. You can add cinnamon to your morning beverages, like you can add it to some coffee, you can add it into a cup of tea, you can just simply sprinkle some in any of a smoothie that you might make. You can use it in your cooking. You can make a cinnamon infused drink. In fact, I love to take cinnamon sticks, like the curled up dried bark of a cinnamon, as what makes a cinnamon stick, and actually, boil up a cup of water, pour the water into a cup, and just put a cinnamon stick right in the water and let it steep. And then what I'll do is I'll actually turn it over. So, then I get the top part of the stick, or sometimes I'll even break it in half. So I get the whole cinnamon stick infusing. And if you've never sipped on a cup of fresh cinnamon tea, I would highly recommend that you try it. It's absolutely delicious, especially in the winter when you really like to sit with a warm cup of tea. I mean, I'm one of those people who drinks tea all year long. And if you are too, then I would highly suggest that you get yourself some cinnamon sticks and try some hot, fresh cinnamon tea. You can also take cinnamon supplements. Now, this is actually a very easy way to get cinnamon in your diet. We actually have cinnamon in our Heart Love capsule product. The star of that is actually cayenne pepper, and then we add a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of slippery elm because cinnamon is good for heart health as well. So there's just a lot of reasons that something like cayenne pepper and cinnamon and then a little bit of slippery elm really complement each other. And this is the beauty of learning about herbs and how they go well together. And like I like to say, there are some herbs that play exceptionally well with other herbs. And cinnamon and cayenne pepper actually really love each other, just the way that they taste together, but also in supplement form. So that is really, really good. You can also make a cinnamon oil. It can be used aromatically or even topically. I would definitely dilute it with a carrier oil because some essential oils can make your skin really sensitive, and cinnamon oil is one of those. You definitely want to add it to a carrier oil, something like sweet almond oil, jojoba oil, coconut oil, something before you use it straight on your skin. But I know that cinnamon essential oil is really good in a diffuser for aromatherapy. It makes your home smell like Christmas. or something's baking. It's like lighting a cinnamon candle, but it's actually better if you're actually lighting real cinnamon oil. And you can get cinnamon essential oil. You can also incorporate it into snacks. Like I have a trail mix that I love to make with nuts and raisins and cranberries and different things, and then I'll sprinkle cinnamon over the whole thing. And I actually have it in my homemade protein bar recipe. I'll put a link to that video I made of me making my homemade protein bars, and I sprinkle a ton of cinnamon in this bar recipe. It not only adds and helps all the flavors come together, but there are a lot of health benefits to it, as you're seeing, right? It's also really nice to combine with honey. In fact, one of the things that I love to do, especially if I feel like I'm kind of a little tiny bit sick in the winter, I'll brew up a cup of fresh cinnamon tea and I'll put some honey in it. And especially if you can find local honey, that's the best. And then I'll just sip on that tea, and it's so soothing for your throat. It tastes good, and you just start feeling better. It's actually so easy to take some of these recipes and some of these things that we have in our spice cabinet and just add them into our routine, because they're not only delicious, they're so good for us. Now, there are a couple of tips for using cinnamon. Now, when I use cinnamon for cinnamon sticks and cinnamon for cooking, I like to use Ceylon cinnamon, and that's spelled C-E-Y-L-O-N. And then there's also cassia cinnamon. Now, cassia is a little high in coumarin, but it also plays, cassia cinnamon plays well with cayenne pepper. So there are reasons to use either Ceylon or cassia. So do a little bit of research on that. If you're using it a little bit more medicinally, then I would definitely use Ceylon, okay? Now, the cool thing about cinnamon is it has a really, really big, beautiful, rich history. It's one of the oldest spices that's known to man. And the cool, interesting thing is that a lot of these spices, including cloves, were kind of fought over. And in the cinnamon trade way back when, the Portuguese had it first, then the Dutch took it over, and then the British took it from them. And there was kind of this fight for cinnamon and even cloves between different countries that were involved in spice trade. Now, a really interesting thing is that cinnamon was used for the elites, for people that were wealthy, for royalty, and I believe it's Nero. So yeah, the Roman Emperor Nero is said to have burned a year's supply of cinnamon at the funeral of his wife as an extravagant gesture of grief. So cinnamon was very, very prized. For a long time, the people that were using it in all these different countries did not know where it came from. It was actually kind of kept secret, which added to its expense, added to its allure. And there's just so many fun things to look at and research about cinnamon, and even just thinking about adding it into your routine. Now, the next thing we're going to just kind of go into quickly is cloves. Now, I love cloves. In fact, one of my favorite things to do, because it's so good for your oral health, is to just take a couple of fresh clove buds or dried clove buds and pop them in my mouth. I love to do this when I'm hiking, and just kind of suck on them, get them soft, kind of barely chew them softly with my teeth. And it's got very powerful antimicrobial properties. It's really good for your oral health. In fact, if you do a little bit of research on this, you'll see that the antibacterial properties of cloves are really, really good. Now, the thing with cloves is you definitely don't want to take too many. 1 or 2 a day to chew on is absolutely perfect. There's a compound in there called eugenol, which can be toxic to your liver in high doses, and it also is partly what gives it a lot of its power. So as with cinnamon, same with cloves, make sure you do your own research on this. And as modern humans, I know we love to overdo things. So make sure that you add these things in a little bit of moderation into your supplement routine, or just even into, popping a dried clove into your mouth and chewing on it. So here's some of the health benefits of cloves. It's very rich in antioxidants. It's got powerful anti-inflammatory properties. It's good for digestive health. In fact, here's what I love about that. Cloves can aid in digestion by increasing the production of digestive enzymes. They are also helpful in reducing gas, bloating, and indigestion. In fact, this was one of the things my dad used to do after a meal. He'd get a clove and he would just suck on it, chew on it. His breath always smelled like cloves. And as a kid, I really never thought that much of it. That was just how my dad, was part of my dad. But as an adult now and having used cloves in my life for many, many years, I totally understand why he did that, because it is really good for your oral health and your digestion. So think about eating a meal, chewing on a clove, and then that also might stop you from having a sweet tooth. Because I know for many of us, it's a habit. We've trained ourselves to want a little bit something sweet after we have usually our evening meal. And a clove can completely just bring that into balance where you don't need it. You've got your digestive juices flowing, and it's also really good for your oral health. And it tastes good, right? It's also good for blood sugar control. It's got antimicrobial properties, pain relief. So clove oil, when applied topically, can help alleviate pain, such as headaches or muscle pain due to its analgesic properties. Now, both of these plants, both of these trees, because it's a cinnamon tree and a clove tree, are in my book, Be Your Own Shaman. And it gives you a lot of information about how to prepare these into things that will help with that. Now, clove oil is also one of those oils that you should use a carrier oil with. So that is a very good suggestion. And then here's another thing: it boosts your immune system and it can support liver health. And I believe that this is because of its ability to get those digestive juices and digestive enzymes flowing. Now, cloves you can use in a very broad spectrum ways of using them too. So they're good in cooking. You can make a clove tea. In fact, what I would suggest is try making a clove and cinnamon tea. I have done this multiple times and it's one of my favorites. You can also make a clove oil. You can use it in baking. You can use it as an aromatherapy agent. It's good in herbal remedies, clove capsules, and in different spice mixes. Now let's back up real quick to herbal remedies. Cloves are one of those spices that has powerful anti-parasite properties as well. And this is something that the clove bud, which is actually the closed up flower of the clove tree, you let them dry in the sun and then they turn brown. And here's the thing: if you're going to use cloves for an anti-parasite cleanse, then you need to make sure and grind up the cloves fresh, because then it releases all the medicinal properties of the clove. So if you get like powdered clove like you would buy in your grocery store, the thing is it will still taste good and it might have some properties left, but once it oxidizes, then you lose most of its beneficial properties. So what I would say is, if you're going to be making your own things out of cloves, like your tea, or maybe you're going to be making a parasite tincture, make sure that you grind the cloves fresh and then put them into the solution to make a tincture. That is really important, because then it releases all those powerful properties. Then you put them into tincture form or you put them into a tea, and voila, you've got a ton of medicinal power. In fact, that's one of the things that I think is really important to pay attention to, is if you're going to be adding these spices, not just for their flavor, but for their medicinal benefits, you want to make sure that they are fresh as possible. Here's a little bit of caution to use about cloves. While cloves offer numerous health benefits, they should be consumed in moderation. And I kind of said something about that a little bit earlier. High doses of clove oil in particular can be toxic, and some people may be allergic to cloves. So this is something that I would just really suggest that when you're adding anything new, please use your own common sense and think about some of the other things that maybe you're allergic to. And I'm sure if you're a person who maybe is sensitive or allergic to other things, you're probably cautious already before adding something into your routine. Now, cloves have a really beautiful long history too. They're native to the Molucca Islands, and they're also known as the Spice Islands in Indonesia. Now, cloves are actually a tree, but the interesting thing is it takes 6 to 10 years before the tree even starts to become mature enough to start growing those flower buds that you actually pick to turn into cloves. So this is something that can take up to 80 years to actually start producing cloves, but it makes this huge tree with a great big canopy. This tree grows and it has a lot of longevity. So what I would say is first start putting some of these delicious spices into the foods and the drinks that you consume, and start looking for recipes in particular that call for these. And I think you'd be surprised at how much fun it is to start adding flavors that maybe feel unique to your palate. If you're just maybe used to things like salt and pepper, or maybe more common things like oregano and basil, and those are all wonderful too. But when you really start incorporating these beautiful, beautiful herbs that have these spices that have so much history and longevity, I think you'd be surprised at how delicious it can make your meals. So I would love to know what you think about these two plants. And cinnamon and cloves both, like I said, require a tropical environment for them to thrive. So what's your experience with these? And what is something that you really, really love to have as a recipe that maybe has both of these in it? I'd love to know what you think about these. And as usual, I always leave a little something out, but I'd love to hear what you think. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and we'll see you in the next one.